Hey guys, welcome to Surf and Show. I'm Noel Salas, and today's surfboard review is on the Dark Twinn by Duke Aipa. Now this is a custom 5.6 coming in at 25.6 liters. I rode this board before my full hip replacement. I was weighing 165 pounds. I've got special guests on this episode. You're gonna love it. Sit back, get your favorite drink, enjoy the show. Super stoked, Duke. You're here on the show.
Oh, I'm amped, man. I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, and the Dark Twinn, I actually had a chance to ride it in a few sessions, had a great time, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the Dark Twinn, the Dark Horse, the model, where it came from?
Oh, where it comes from. Wow. So the influence comes from the 70s into the 90s. I actually took a couple different templates from a Kekoa template in the 70s to a 90s swing twin template that was like a squash tail thruster, and kind of mushed it together to come up with the outline of the Dark Twinn. A lot of the influence of the engine comes from this board right here, which is a replica of a board that came out in the late 70s that had a bottom called the Pro-Am bottom. It is wildly different than anything that anyone's probably seen. And the influence is heavily noted in the Dark Twinn.
Sick. Now, you were telling me before we started shooting that this is Bob Hurley's board?
Yeah, this is actually Bob Hurley's board. He gave it back to the family during my dad's paddle out as a sign of respect. But the board's modeled after one of my brother's personal boards back in the late 70s that my dad made for him, including the airbrush. This is basically my brother's board.
That's epic. Now, you guys can't see it, but this particular board doesn't have a wing, right? And both the Dark Twinn and the Dark Horse have a wing here on the tail, which is kind of what your dad's, one of his things that he's super famous for, right?
Yeah, actually, like my dad created the first wing board of its kind, which was the Sting. And that came about in 1973. And it went through many series of refinements. And in fact, in 76, when my dad was making Stings for Mark Richards, MR is really experimental and had asked my dad to move the wing down. And eventually it got to the point of the Wing Twin, or what we know now as MR Wing Twin. Somewhere throughout all that trial and error, there was a board called the Swing Twin, which had the same bottom as this, the Pro-Am bottom. But the influence, again, it's so heavily impregnated in the Dark Twinn and the Dark Horse.
What's up, guys? This is my Dark Arts Dark Twinn from Duke Aipa. I rock the little trailer in it, but I love this board. This board's so fun to ride. It just makes surfing really easy. Just makes me love it again. I mean, with this type of board, this is like a fun board for me. I ride it, you know, when the waves are small or just fun, or when I don't want to take it as serious. And this board makes me fall in love with surfing again. Makes me feel like a little Grom, and I get super excited and stoked. And yeah, it's just, you get the best of everything. The board's really light and, you know, maneuverable, and it's super fast because of the whole twin fin setup. And it has these little wings, or these hips right here, that make the board really easy to turn. As you can see, it's right next to the fin. So whenever I like push right into that fin, it kind of does a little pivot, and I don't know, it's just really fun. It's just a different type of surfing. And with the Dark Arts construction, with it being all carbon, it's really light and just like really easy to maneuver and just feels lively under your feet. But at the same time, it still has a little more stiffness than you would have out of like an epoxy board. So you can actually push through, and riding a little bigger surf. I actually got a session on it in Mexico. That was like 4 to 6 foot, and I was riding it the whole time, and it was super fun. But yeah, I love this board. It's just good for your everyday surf, and you know, if you just want to go out there and have fun and, you know, come in happier, ride this thing.
Now, pulling the Dark Twin down, so you can talk to us about maybe bottom contours and how you're saying that a lot of this influence is in here. Why don't you tell us what that looks like?
Wow. So, I mean, I'm a firm believer in staged bottom contours. I believe that when you are approaching a wave, that a wave is not one direction, it's omnidirectional. Water flows every direction.
Sure.
So the best way to capture the essence and the feeling of a wave, to like translate that to your surfing, is to stage the bottom. So the bottom of the Dark Twin has a roll in the nose, which most boards in California, almost everywhere, have a single concave through it. But I believe in having a roll in the front. That way the water kind of parts as you're paddling. Also, when you're landing areas, you pick it and it helps you to roll around. So it goes from a roll to a single to a double with a heavy amount of V with double at the tail. Now, when you're paddling, having all that roll, you're sliding into the wave, rolls under, the single starts to lift. And then from that point, if you've ever seen like how a speedboat reacts, like when it starts going, it's playing, and when it starts hauling ass, it tails up like this.
Sure.
So it does pretty much the same thing for a surfer. Especially when you're engaging and you're bottom turning and you're pivoting, this is the action.
Right.
Action. So for me, I remembered the feeling of these boards, because even though these boards were made in the late 70s, they were kicking around our garage in the 80s.
Right.
And I remember playing around on it and how sensitive this board was, because there's such a heavy amount of V right here with an insane amount of double concave.
Right.
It's like having a super sensitive motorcycle clutch where you can just switch gears, but for us as surfers, switch rail to rail.
Sure.
Instantly.
Yep.
It's a little heavy on this board, so the influence that I wanted to capture and impose in the Dark Twin was just an essence of it, a feeling of it. So I kind of mellowed it out. But when I say mellow it out, for your average board designer, you look at this thing, it's got an insane amount of double. Most people bring their V's, and it's a small amount of V in between the center fin.
Right.
But I wanted all the action to happen where the breaking of the water was at the wing, where the pivot is. I wanted all that action right there.
Sure.
So you could really feel how quick it can transition rail to rail and engage it.
Right. One of the things I noticed about the Dark Twin is it's carrying good speed, it's fast, it's loose, and I think we could attribute that to the single to the aggressive double, because I feel like the way the water flows between fins on a double concave really loosens the board up. And then the V, one of the things I noticed about this particular board is it actually likes to be on rail. And for a twin plus trailer, or even maybe like the Dark Horse with a quad, when you're carrying that much speed, you really want the board to lay over and be able to push. And I remember listening to the interview that you sent over with Zeke Lau. He was saying it's super easy to surf.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the main things that makes it easy to surf. Because it has so much V, it actually settles, even if it's got a little bump or texture to it. When you're carrying that kind of speed, even in the Dark Arts, EPS, epoxy construction, they can be a little topical. This board settled down real nice, and you could push through your turns.
Yeah, and I think that also complementing the amount of V in the double is what I have going on the rail.
Right.
I mean, our dad, the rails that we were taught to do are very tapered rails.
Right.
But I'm here in California, and I realize that a tapered rail is not always a good thing to have, especially in California.
Sure.
But I wanted to keep the essence of having that lower apex, which is a part of the sensitivity, part of the rail engagement, part of holding the rail strong in the water.
Right.
So I kept that essence in the Dark Twin, but what I did is just I filled this section out.
Sure.
So it was more of a California friendly board.
Yeah.
The side effect was that it worked even better when I took it back home to Hawaii, or when Zeke took it into Mexico.
Right.
I mean, the things he was doing were mind-boggling.
Yeah. Agreed. He's absolutely
A monster.
Dark Twin. Now, we've talked about the bottom contours. Obviously, rocker is super important for our community. I found the board to be very versatile. I rode it in smaller waves. Like I said, it likes to be on rail. I pretty much rode the pivot twin that I make with the trailer. I saw Zeke riding your twin plus trailer. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about fins and the rocker?
Wow. So again, I designed this mainly for California.
Sure.
So it just has a moderate rocker, pretty low tail rocker, moderate, medium nose rocker, nothing extravagant.
Right.
Again, because a lot of the action is coming from the double concave and the mount of the V that's back here.
What is your take on the twin plus trailer? Maybe tell us a little bit about your fin.
Wow. Well, the twin plus trailer, I would almost throw the terminology out the door. It's like unlocking a new part of your thruster surfing.
Agreed.
It will make your surfing on your standard thruster board better. It's a new sensation.
Sure.
You have to adjust how you react because you're experiencing more freedom.
Right.
This has definitely been a favorite fin of mine. I've tried quite a few, but this has definitely been the one for me. We really wanted to widen out the base for a lot of drive.
Sure.
And then really rake it. I'd like to try yours.
Yeah. So similar. So mine's kind of the opposite of yours. It has the large base like you. I like the drive. It's a little more upright. So it's going to pivot faster, but I gave it a wider tip, and that'll give me more hold. And then running it with a stabilizer, whether it's mine or yours, it's going to give us that pivot, stabilize the board, and have something to come off the bottom. And I never really feel like most twin plus trailers are going to slide out. Like you're saying, it feels like a thruster to me.
Yep.
So I can push. It gives me that hold and traction, but it does have a refreshing feel, like the board's got more drive, it's looser, and the tail's more playful with less effort on my part if I want it to be.
Well, another good testament is there's some clips of Kekoa Cazimero just absolutely terrorizing bulls. And he can depend on that thing to yank it whenever he wants to yank it.
Sure.
But also depend that when he wants to put it on a rail and pull it around, it's going to hold for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sensitivity of this board is pretty crazy. You have like the freedom to be in the pocket and release, but you also have that option to like draw a longer turn. So you got to, it comes down to control, but when you have that control, you have the option to do that quick pivot, release with this 2+1, or you can come out into the flats, draw like a real long turn, come back up, foam climb. So the freedom you have on this board and the options you have is what's pretty mind-blowing. So this tail pretty much is the reason for all that, but too much fun, to be honest. Kind of dangerous.
Now, we've been talking Dark Twin, twin plus trailer. This is Dark Horse. Correct me if I'm wrong. This comes sold as a quad.
I'm a quad guy. Quads came out 82, 83.
Sure.
And at that point, I was like 8 years old. But that was dominantly what my dad was making me, was quads.
Right.
So I just kind of like really stuck with that. That stuck with me and my surfing and what I wanted to feel.
Sure.
So when I designed the Dark Twin first, I was like, you know what? I wonder what this would feel like as a quad specific. And yeah, I could have arranged the fins so it kind of worked either way, but I didn't want to do that. That kind of takes away from the design when you're designing something.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I'll move the wing up a little more so it fits the quad fin configuration and see what it feels like. And I had my team rider, Joel Bishop, out in the water with me, and we're swapping back and forth, and it blew my mind how very different the boards were. Sure. Even though the design was pretty much the same, and we're talking about moving the wing up 1.5 inches.
Right.
But just that 1.5 inches with the quad configuration, worlds apart.
And I love that you're making customs available in the Dark Arts construction.
To me, the Dark Arts construction has the most unique energy absorption and elastic energy release.
Right.
When when you bottom turn this thing, it's already wanting to go.
Sure.
Which is a little adjustment because it wants to automatically launch.
Yeah.
But once you get that and you harness that, the feeling is so unique.
Say that the Dark Arts tech brings it up another level as far as the responsiveness and just how quick you can transition as well as control what you're doing, but with even extra speed. So underfoot, I was actually off the bottom. I was projecting so fast up to the lip that I found myself on the first 3 or 4 waves not used to being up so quickly, and I was actually doing turns out the back.
Wow.
And there was legitimately an extra bit of flex or whatever the patterns are there that were slingshotting me up. And but once I got that under control, just loved the additional speed, responsiveness, and I've never gotten more compliments from people in the water that said that thing is lightning fast.
Yeah.
And the Dark Twin legitimately felt like a high performance shortboard. It felt like a thruster. The only time it didn't is when I changed that middle fin to the nub or smaller.
Sure.
I truly feel it feels like a very high performance thruster.
Sure.
And I didn't expect that coming from riding thrusters my whole life.
Yep.
But it really felt like even better than a lot of the thrusters I've ridden in the past, and more responsive. And the only thing is that just as soon as you got to that overhead wave range, that's when I noticed that it wasn't the full thruster feel.
Yeah.
But in the traditional, chest to shoulder high, chest to head high range, it felt like one of the best high performance shortboards I've ever ridden.
Well, Duke, Dark Twin, Dark Horse, the history. I had a blast on the board. I think people are going to be stoked on it. Thanks for making me 2 boards in the Dark Arts construction. That's always super exciting for me also.
Thanks, Justin.
And then thanks for breaking the board down and helping out the community.
My pleasure, man. It stokes me out to see people just enjoying themselves in the water. I mean, that's ultimately what, as board builders, we're here to do.
Yeah, and special thanks to Eddie Lester, Zeke Lau, Kekoa, and all the footage that was given to us by Quicksilver and everybody that shot the footage for us to make this board review special for our community and for you and your brand.
I think everyone's going to be frothing.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm frothing.
Yeah, hey guys, to order fins, I put all the links below. You can get Duke's fins at Naked Viking Surf, the links below. You're definitely going to love either one of these boards, whether you're a quad guy or twin plus trailer. I think you guys are going to be stoked.